Sabrina,
Cassia.
truth time. I hate hair. I think from the days when I was very young, I would be happier if I just never had to deal with or think about hair.
Have you ever considered shaving your head?
Yeah, a lot of times. G.I. Jane, do you remember it? She looked good.
Friggin' love that movie. Demi Moore.
She looked good.
She did. I mean, not all of us would look like Demi Moore and G.I. Jane, but
Definitely this body does not look like that. But it's so tempting. I don't want to get up in the morning and think about what to do with my hair.
yeah. So here's the thing is it's not just that women have complicated relationships to our hair. Men also have complicated relationships with women's hair.
Absolutely.
One day I cut my hair a little bit shorter than normal and I didn't tell Sean about it, and I show up at his door and he was like, not because it didn't look good, but because he was taken aback.
Right.
And now every time I get my hair cut, he's like, what are you going to do? I just need to be prepared. I just, whatever you do is beautiful. I just need to be prepared. Just tell me so that I can prepare.
To be prepared? Come on, Sean.
I don't know. I guess it's the equivalent of a man who has a beard for most of his life just showing up without a beard.
Yeah, fine. I don't need to be prepared for that. It would be shocking, yes. You would look very different, yes.
But you know what? It grows back.
The beauty of hair.
This week I got to speak with Simone Wright from Toronto, Canada, who is the founder of Parting the Roots, which is a grassroots organization focused on the history, significance, and politics behind Black hair. And the reason why this was such an interesting conversation for me is because if our listeners have been sticking with us, we've been talking about hair for a while now.
It turns out most women do. From a very early age, this is a topic of interest.
Yeah. Turns out women generally have a very complicated relationship to our hair. It is something that we put so much pressure on in terms of our beauty standards and how we fit into society and how people treat us and etc. I told the story of my daughter was at the time 3 years old when she started saying, I hate my curly hair, and how it just gutted me. And Simone does this for a living, where she actually goes and speaks with Fortune 500 companies about how to be more present to the very complicated history of Black women and their hair.
Well, I think it's worth noting here that while all women have a complicated relationship with their own hair, the Black community is an incredibly different experience. We are talking about now society's complicated relationship with Black people's hair. And that's a whole nother level here. We are talking about it being used as a tactic for racism.
Yeah, and that's a really important distinction because as Simone, speaks to me about, Black people have actually a very rich and beautiful history with their hair. Their hair is very culturally significant for thousands and thousands of years. And we, Western colonial civilization weaponized that against Black communities. And that is the complicated part, right? That is the thing that has put so much pressure on Black communities to conform, to adjust how they look, work-wise, military-wise, across so many categories. And it's because of outside pressures and outside stigmas that have now persisted for hundreds of years. And it was also really interesting to hear about how that has been very present in the US and in Canada.
Does she unpack her own journey? Because from the bits and pieces I've heard about the topic and other women reflecting on their experiences, it seems just incredibly burdensome to have to navigate that sort of cultural and racial complexity with regards to how you feel about your hair and how society feels about your hair and how society wants you to feel about your hair. There's just so many layers there that a woman has to unpack and walk through and navigate.
Yeah, and she does. She exposes her own hair journey, and certainly talks about the fact that it should not be, cannot be on the burden of her or her community to change anyone else's perception of what beauty is or what being quote unquote appropriate in the workplace looks like. This is something that needs to be a huge cultural shift for all of us.
I cannot wait to take a listen.
Thanks for joining me, Simone.
Nice to meet you, Sabrina. I'm really glad to be here and that you're talking about this topic that I'm so passionate about.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you join us. This is a topic that has been top of mind for me. I mean, my basically my whole life, but as far as professionally, because women generally have complicated relationships with their hair, and for no one more than Black women. And that's kind of the area that you focus on, and that's something that I really want to talk with you about, embracing your natural hair and
Yep.
texture, right? First of all, you're based in Canada. Where in Canada are you right now?
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, so that is Treaty 13. So I just want to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement. So yeah, I reside on the Treaty number 13 here in Toronto, Canada.
Nice. Okay. So, I want to start with your personal journey. How did you feel? I mean, we already acknowledged this a little bit, but as as a little girl, how what was your relationship to your hair then, and how did it evolve over time?
So I'll take a step back. So I do live in Toronto, but I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So it's a small city in the prairies of Canada. And growing up in the 80s, there wasn't a huge Black community. And in fact, the first elementary school that I attended, I was the only Black kid until my brother started 2 years after me. So that's just the level of representation in regards to my school journey. And because of that, I didn't see anyone who looked like me at school. You know, everyone, they had straighter hair. And that was something that I really was, eyeing and envious of. And even the women in my family, like my mom, my aunts, they all had straight hair because they chemically straightened their hair. So I didn't have that representation of someone else with, like kinky hair like mine. And especially with Black children and our hair, we tend to style our hair in protective hairstyles. So if that's cornrows or in plaits with bubbles. So my hair always stood out compared to everyone else at school. So I wanted to assimilate. I wanted to look like everyone else. And for quite a while, I was begging my mom to chemically straighten my hair. And finally, at the age of 9, my mom did that. And she did it for multiple reasons because it did take extra time for her to do my hair. So having it in a straighter hairstyle would mean that it would be more easier for her to manage and maintain my hair.
I want to interrupt you just so I understand. When you say it would take more time, before you got your hair chemically straightened, what was the hairstyle that your mom would send you off to school with? Was it normally braids or something else?
Yeah, it would be braids, it would be cornrows. So like my cousins or my aunts, they would cornrow my hair into like different styles. Like they were gorgeous. Like I have photos of my hair from when I was a kid and it looked beautiful. But again, because I wasn't seeing anyone who looked like me, I wanted to, straighten my hair. So the thing is that it does take time to do our hair. So like either every Saturday or Sunday, my mom would spend hours doing my hair. So it'd be washing my hair, conditioning it, detanger headed person. So I'd always be crying whenever my mom would do my hair. So it was stressful for me, but it was also stressful for my mom.